Namaste, everybody, and welcome to today's live stream, which is titled Challenging Misconceptions in Hinduism. My name is Nishit Kotak. I'm here from the Hindu Academy team, and we're truly excited to have you join us from our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter accounts and uniting with us in this enlightening exploration of Hinduism. I'm immensely pleased today to be accompanied by our respected panel of experts. We've got Sitaben, Vijaybai, and their wealth of knowledge and keen insights will undoubtedly enhance our discussion. Unfortunately, today, Manish Bhai is not able to join us, but he sends us his regards and wishes us a fantastic session. Today, we will be delving into some of the widely held misconceptions about Hinduism, looking at topics such as polytheism versus pluralism, the caste system, and our approach to what is often misunderstood as idol worship. These are nuanced subjects that have been misunderstood over the years, and our objective today is to foster clarity, to dispel any doubts, and challenge those misconceptions to promote a better understanding of our rich tradition and philosophy. So as part of today's live stream event, we're going to be kicking off with a focus topic video that provides an overview of these misconceptions. And following the video, we will get into a discussion around this topic where Sitaben and Vijaybai will be sharing their thoughts. And we encourage you, the viewers, to join in as well. Please feel free to chime in with your thoughts, comments, and questions onto the live stream area, wherever you are in the chat area. And we greatly appreciate your active participation. So furthermore, I'd like to encourage you all to share this live stream link with friends and family who can join us and make this conversation even richer. So without any further ado, let's embark on today's topic by sharing the focus video. Bear with me as I get that loaded up.
We have a number of topics which are currently being used to demean Hinduism. This includes polytheism, idolatry, caste system, being unfair to non-Hindus, Kali, the holy cow, and Puranic stories. There are so many ways these things have been misused and misconstrued and used to put Hinduism in a negative light.
Very true.
Can you help us to navigate all of this and help the viewers understand how to overcome these challenges if they hear somebody talking about Hinduism in a negative light using one of these kind of topics?
Okay. You see, we can turn the challenges on its head. Challenges become opportunity to promote the deeper vision that we possess that other religions don't have. So I'm going to do that. First one, the biggest one is, I get it all the time, is polytheism, many gods. How can you have many gods, Mr. Lakhani, all this? Straight with the response, very simple, very beautiful. We are not polytheist, we are pluralistic tradition, recognizing a variation of approaches in making spiritual progress. This is called spiritual democracy. It's the heart of Hindu tradition, not me putting it up. You go to a little village and ask a little old lady, do we have many gods? No, one god, many names and forms. They'll tell you bluntly, this is called pluralism, right at the heart of our tradition. So we have always been a pluralistic tradition, recognizing variation in the way we become spiritual. So this is something that is not to be used to vilify Hinduism, that is the one to promote Hinduism. I'll tell you how. If people in the modern world want to live, people of different religions in the modern world want to live at peace with each other, or even live at peace with the people of their own tradition with slight variation, the only way they can do it genuinely is using pluralism. Suppose you belong to this one religion, but there's a different faction in there are two factions in your tradition. The only way they can live with each other without bombing each other, without killing each other, is to say pluralism. My friend, you like the ceremonials, you're Catholic, good for you. Oh, you don't like ceremonials, you're Protestant, good for you. This is your way, don't try and kill each other. They've been killing each other for hundreds of years now. The only way you can stop killing in the name of religion, or even in the same religion you're killing each other, is to adopt pluralism that we are promoting. Pluralism, many ways to be spiritual. Recognize it. Do you think that we have to do that? Because if they embrace this idea, the Abrahamic faiths are finished in 2 ticks, because they can't promote exclusivism, we alone are right. This government first in 2 ticks. So there is no way they're promoting. In fact, I had to fight the Religious Education Council of England and Wales saying, promote the idea of pluralism in the future, because for the students to know about many ways to be spiritual, allow for it. No, Mr. Lakhani. So this has been an ongoing story. So pluralism is not polytheism, and pluralism, and why is it so relevant? This will stop fighting in the name of religion for good, in a genuine manner. First issue. The second issue they throw in our face is very simply, you are idolatrous.
Jipai, before we come to that, a lot of people may not really have grasped what is the difference between pluralism and polytheism.
Yes, let's...
Okay, just give a very short answer. What's the difference between polytheism and pluralism?
Yes, very simple. You see, the reason is this. Suppose you belong to a particular sectarian movement, or belong to some particular social structure in some part of India. Suppose you live in a village in Gujarat. They like to think of ultimate reality as Mother Goddess. They love Mataji, and they love and sing and dance. That is their way of becoming spiritual, relating to ultimate reality as a mother figure. But suppose you live in South India and you like Shiva, ultimate reality is Shiva, and people say, yes, we love Shiva. That is the way they become spiritual, using different name and form to the same ultimate reality. And this is not something that is conjured up by Mr. Lakhani in modern days. This comes from the Rig Veda, the most ancient scripture in the world. It says, Ekam asatya vipara bahuda vadanti. The same ultimate can be thought of in different ways. Different names and forms can be given to the same ultimate reality. So names and forms are different, guaranteed to be different, because they reflect different social and cultural groups in India, and we are fine with that. So if I am a Shiva devotee and if I go to a Vishnu temple, I don't feel upset. I say this is the way they like to think ultimate reality. The Vishnu, good for them. So this is why pluralism is ingrained in India. Thankfully, it's ingrained, and this is the best example of how people of other religions can truly embrace pluralism without thumping each other. And this is why it's a crucial element of our tradition. It's good that you asked me to give in detail why is the variation.
Can I sum it up in my own way I've understood it? So polytheism is where you have many different gods. Each one is separate from each other.
And they're all ultimate.
They're all ultimate. And what pluralism is, that there's only one ultimate God, but there are very different forms or names that you can give to that one ultimate reality.
Perfect.
So that is the difference.
Perfect, sir. You really summarized extremely well.
Brilliant. Okay, so we go to idolatry now.
Idolatry is another issue they're kind of throwing in my face, saying, Mr. Lakhani, God is infinite. You can't give it finite form. Even the Jews, I'm telling my experience. I took a very, very intelligent Jewish academic to a Hindu temple. I said, let's go inside. He said, no, I can't come in. I said, what's wrong? He says, this is the way Hindus like to worship. No, I can't come in. They said, in Judaism, he said, thou shalt not make graven images of thy God, and you are doing it left, right, and center. I'm not going to come near you. So he stayed outside. True story. So what is going on? I know what is going on. Infinite cannot be made finite, horrible. And I've been very rude and very nasty. I say, look, my friend, you call your God infinite? They say, yes. Does he have infinite powers? They say, sure. Then I ask a very crude and rude and rough question. I say, does he have the power to become finite? Does he have one button? Ding! Goes, hee! They say, they don't know how to reply. If they say he doesn't have the button, that means he's not infinite enough. He's missing one power. And if they say he's infinite, then I say, why is he not using that button? Our God keeps using the button. Your God doesn't do it. This is horrible. So when I do that, they're gobsmacked. They don't know how to reply. So we are not apologetic regarding things, the ultimate reality, taking on a human form and interacting with us as Ram or Krishna or Buddha. We have no difficulty. So they have difficulty, but we don't have difficulty. And we are not idolaters one bit. Every tradition, religious as well as what you call secular tradition, will use some kind of iconography to relate to some subtle ideas. That's what quantum physics is about. There's no reality, it's just squiggles. And suppose you ask somebody, oh, what is infinite? Can you put on the blackboard? So, I'll swagger up to the blackboard and write it in twiddle. Say, that's infinite. I say, that's not infinite. That's number 8 that had too much to drink in New Year's Eve. He's toppled over. He says, no, you know what I mean? I say, I know what you mean, but you've not done that. That's not mean that's finite. See? Use finite symbolism to relate to the infinite. We are not apologizing. We love it. And we love these colorful gods and goddesses. Why not? You see, our tradition is the one the most colorful tradition. The others are all bland, black. And he said, no color. We like to bring color to life. So that is why all our gods and goddesses are very well dressed. We love this idea of ultimate reality taking on different names and forms, as a mother goddess, a father god, whatever. We love to relate to them, embrace them, And are we attracted to this colorful gods and goddesses? We are not at all 1% apologetic about showing our gods and goddesses as images.
You're definitely right. Wherever you go in whichever religion, they have some sort of an image or some symbol to represent some aspect of the religion.
Absolutely. For example, go to a Christian church, there's a cross, wooden cross, and they're bowing down. So this wooden cross, no, Mr. Lakar, Christianity. See symbolism. Or suppose I go to a Jewish synagogue.
Yes.
And I went once, and there was this something, ark in the middle, like a little chest. And I went near to touch. He said, Mr. Lakar, you can't touch. That's the ark. Sacred. I said, it's a wooden chest. No, you can't touch it. See what you're doing?
Symbolism.
Every religion will use symbolism or a direction, saying this is the direction of God. See, like that, they'll kind of, in a way, articulate using some different methodology to relate to something subtle.
What about the caste system?
Again, this is another thing that's thrown in our face again and again, and I love to take it on. And I've done a very robust program with BBC that's already on the YouTube. And I take the challenge back into the lobby. I say, look, you see, every society, every civilization since very ancient time has a habit of stratification. It's human nature. We stratify. I for example, like Nishit Bhai, so I cannot get in touch with him and keep in touch with him. There are some people I don't like in our traditions. I keep away from them. We stratify. So human beings have been stratifying this for thousands of years. All civilization, including the communist civilization, you stratify people. So stratification is natural. But then that is fair enough, and that is the only comment we passed in the Rig Veda, saying different people have different abilities, so they can group together, kind of focus on certain abilities. They may be intellectual, they may be action-oriented. That is how we started. Very simple. Your abilities will dictate what you are capable of. Simple as that. That's how we started in Rig Veda. But in no time, it turned into a very nasty, divisive, hereditary, hierarchical caste system. It's happening everywhere, by the way. Eton College and the English class system is precisely that. So it turns into a hereditary, hierarchical system. Why does it become hereditary? It's very simple, very common sense. We can understand why things become hereditary. Suppose I love physics. I would love to make my daughter turn to physics, and I can teach her, isn't it? Because in my natural skill, I can pass it on to her. So there's a tendency for me to push my daughter to adopt my profession. This is how it became hereditary. A person, suppose skilled in making, say, pots, will love to pass on his tradition to his son, saying, this is how you make pots. It's an easy way to pass on this knowledge. So it becomes easily hereditary. It's human nature to pass on our skills to our next generation.
I think even in the times of before, all kinds of teaching was oral and by virtue of physically doing things.
Yes,
there was no internet, there was no library as such. What people had access to was their experience hands-on and oral tradition.
That's how it became hereditary.
That's how people pass on their skills and secrets.
This is how it became hereditary. Again, you see, the Hindu tradition never promoted hereditary caste. It doesn't say Brahmin son is Brahmin, never said that. In fact, chapter 18 of Bhagavad Gita defines the Brahmin in a very unusual manner. Not somebody born as a Brahmin, but somebody is basically content by nature, is always truthful and leads a God-centered life or a spiritual life. They say this is a Brahmin. An Englishman walking across can be a Brahmin on that basis.
On that basis, yeah.
So this is why the characteristic that we're talking about defines you as which caste you belong to. That's all we said. It became hereditary, and the worst thing is become hierarchical. This is again human failing. There is always an ability, there is always, if you like, a tendency for human beings to group together and then control others. Now you may think, oh, this is old-fashioned, horrible thing the Hindus adopted. It is visible in the world today. Look, today you see all these wars going on in the Middle East. What's happening? There are some first world powers that are very keen to control the third world countries because of oil reserves.
We just heard
the news.
Yes.
So they are very keen to control. This is hereditary hierarchical caste system internationalized. So a group of people who are in a stronger position want to control the people who are in a weaker position by imposing themselves on them, stealing their oil, and that is visible on the world stage today. This is hereditary hierarchical caste system internationalized. Now, visible. It's human failing, nothing with religion. So, but these Hindus, you are horrible. We are not. In fact, I go to schools here, colleges here. In fact, BBC did a program on caste system recently. It was a horrible program. I'll just show you how bad it was. They found one girl, a Gujarati girl, who was doing carpentry. And the BBC said, see, hereditary caste system practiced in the United Kingdom. I said, one little girl making little kind of thing with a little saw. You can't call it hereditary caste system in UK, because 99% of Hindus who come to this country are either studying medicine, pharmacy, optician, and they are not doing this thing that their forefathers were doing, sowing seed and farmers. They all switched in 2 ticks. But you found one girl doing a little bit of carpentry, hereditary caste system in UK. And this poor, horrible program on Qasim, BBC, they cut me out completely because I would go against what they were talking about. But they wanted to continue to promote Hinduism as this weak, horrible, monstrous religion with hereditary caste system in UK, the girl cutting with a carpentry knife, horrible hereditary caste system in UK. And the other thing they were showing is, to show this is hierarchical, they went to university and said, one student said, see, that sofa set is only for the Brahmin boys. Now the Brahmin boys don't give a damn if they're Brahmin or non-Brahmin, they sit wherever they like and drink whatever they like. So such nonsense was being presented in the UK, in BBC, saying hereditary, hierarchical caste system in the UK visible. And I was laughing, and not laughing but crying. It was, this is horrible. But this is the standard problem we have when it comes to the caste system.
I think the world has changed a lot since the days of maybe 200, 300, 400 years ago. And nobody even practices caste system at all. They'll be laughed at and
nobody
chased out of the door.
So there you have it, a fantastic video that talks about some very interesting misconceptions about Hinduism. I hope, viewers, that you found that video to be both enlightening and at least thought-provoking. So as we delve deeper into the realm of Hinduism, it's essential to question, understand, and dispel these misconceptions that often cloud our judgment. Now we are about to start our question and answer session for the live stream. And as we proceed, I'd like to remind you all that we would love to have your thoughts, your comments, your questions. Please share them on the live stream platform wherever you're watching us, on Twitter, on Facebook, or on YouTube. So let's get started with today's session. Welcome, Sitaben and Vijay Bhai. We are going to get started with today's session. Let me just share the screen. And so with the first question, now this video had a lot of information. So Sitaben, what are the common misconceptions about Hinduism that you've encountered both here in the UK and maybe globally?
Yeah, I think Dad just basically encapsulated everything really in terms of all this sort of misconceptions. So they basically boil down to the idea of polytheism, this idea that people think, what a weird religion, there's so many different gods, and how can that make any sense philosophically? It just doesn't, because God is meant to be ultimate, and then how can you have so many different ultimate gods? So we clarify that by saying it's pluralism. Another big issue is this idea of caste. That's a big issue, because as Dad said so clearly in the video, it's not just related to the Indian subcontinent. It's happened around the world, and it still continues to happen in a very different guise on an international scale. So that's another thing that we need to sort of bear in mind. And I think it's really important that we, especially as Hindus, are aware of these misconceptions, because then when we come across people who are not Hindu, we can explain, we can clarify that this is what Hinduism is all about. Because if we ourselves are not equipped with the information and the knowledge, people can throw it in our face and make us feel down, can make us feel sort of worried about our own background and our own tradition, and make us think, oh, maybe we are a weird religion, maybe, there isn't any validity to it at all. Whereas if we have that knowledge and skill, it's incredibly important. It's actually very empowering, because we can then present that to people who are non-Hindus and help them to gain a better insight into what Hinduism is all about. And that's why Dad spent so much of his life dedicated to education, educating children and young people and adults about all of these various issues about Hinduism and spirituality, which can not only address misconceptions, make us feel empowered about our own tradition, but also feel empowered about the idea of spirituality as a whole, because that really gives a tremendous breadth and depth to our lives, rather than just living a materialistic life like hundreds and thousands and millions of other people around the world. This gives us some kind of rock. It gives us some stability when life gives us all these ups and downs. So I think it's incredibly important what Dad has set up. Vijay?
Yeah, I think Sita, you have covered quite nicely the issues we have. I mean, there's so many other issues, Nishit Bhai. I mean, sometimes people have told me, "Oh, you guys are, you drink cow urine and God knows all kinds of bizarre stuff." And the thing is that, it's easy to pick up various, little extreme ideas from particular faith and then attack them, because it's not difficult. You can use any religion, but is that how you want to compare religion with some other religion? This is the key point here. I'll give you an example. In the caste system, there's a big debate in the House of Lords when this caste issue came up, and I think one of the lords mentioned that 850,000 Hindus are affected by the caste. And you go, what? What are you talking, right? So the idea is sometimes they have this built-in prejudice because somehow they feel that this idea, but our idea is better, and they will. And the thing was, the worst part in the debate, they followed little bit of debate, is quite a coordinated attack, because all the guys had kind of pre-planned themselves to say on this caste system. And you wonder, what are they doing, right? And no Hindus really care about it. Quite often, I think Jay has mentioned once that when we have discovered something, they still don't impose it on us. It happened to my children as well. They in school, they were asked, what caste are you? And then my kids said, don't know. And they said, can you go ask your parents? And I told them back that, tell them my father's refused to tell us, we don't have any caste. Yeah, so they went. So the thing is, sometimes they impose it, because it's sometimes you wonder, I mean, who is controlling this kind of narrative? It's really, really pathetic in some ways. And as Jay mentioned, that the Stellified societies has always been there. I mean, Europe is it should be very common. You had the nobles, we had the knights, you had the merchant class, and then you had the serfs. That's been there for ages, but they don't talk about it, right? Because it doesn't suit the narrative. The key question is, how do you get the kind of narrative? Because I mean, BBC is a very big, media channel. So how they control narratives by producing this kind of stuff. Look, this is what Hindus are, and it's a pity that we have to pay for it. But this is the problem we have, unfortunately, kind of narrative. And you wonder that despite the amount of tremendous damage Jay mentioned, to be fighting this exclusive faith for so long, they've pretty much wiped out the pagan culture in UK. And they're still not satisfied. It's absolutely insane, So, but anyway, the other things about, the Murti stuff, I think Hindus are very unapologetic. We accept that we can go in multiple ways. As a matter of fact, in our GC syllabus, you got the idea of prati. Prati means going towards, the ultimate. You can use pratima, image, or pratiks, symbols, right? And we all need that because of 5 senses limit us. And that's absolutely fine. The key issue is this: when Hindus worship a murti, they don't believe that a stone has power. It's just a representative of God. I think in the olden days, if you look at the Abrahamic faith, in their case of idol was like, the stone itself had power, like a magical stone, or like a magical ring has power. Hindus don't believe that. They believe it's an image of God to kind of link to him. The stone itself has no power. I mean, if the stone got damaged, the image, they take it out for a new one. That's a key thing to keep in mind. There is no idolatry in the sense that the Western world used to perceive in the olden days. Yeah.
Brilliant. So let's get started with the basics. How would you explain the concept of divinity in Hinduism to somebody who's used to a monotheistic idea of God in like other mainstream religions? Sita?
Yes, I mean, so infinity, as Dad so wonderfully put it in the video, is, if God is infinite, then surely he has a button which he can press for him to become finite in order to sort of satisfy the requirements, the human requirements of his devotees, people who love him or love her. So that's part and parcel of being infinite, is you should have infinite power. So how do we sort of reconcile that? And it's a question that people from the monotheist tradition really struggle with, because for them, this idea that, you can think of God in a variety of different ways can be a bit challenging. It can be very difficult to accept. But I think also another sort of issue that we get with this idea of thinking of God with form is that it comes with so much philosophical baggage. There are so many unanswerable questions when you think of God as being with form, because, you know, if you impose all of these superlatives on God, that he is or she is all powerful, all compassionate, all loving, and then when you look at the state of the world, you're like, it just doesn't fit. It doesn't make any rational sense whatsoever that a God with all of these qualities is, you know, allowing such tremendous suffering, such tremendous pain across the entire living kingdom. How is that possible? Either this God is incredibly cruel, or he isn't all that powerful as you're making him out to be. So what is the answer to that? And the answer from the Hindu tradition is, obviously, we like to think of God not just with form, which is very helpful to a number of people, thousands of people over thousands of years, but actually this non-theistic approach is much more, in a way, philosophically sound, because we are saying that we are all divine, we are all the spirit. So, you know, we don't just sit in our corner and cry and blame a God in the sky. We say, hang on, we are God ourselves. So it's our duty and our responsibility to do something about any kind of pain or suffering or issues that we see around us. So in fact, it's incredibly empowering. It makes us active agents in our environment rather than being passive, you know, people just sitting in a corner and crying. We are actually trying to resolve our own human condition in this particular way. So I think that's this non-theistic approach is so much more philosophically sound. Vijay bhai?
Yeah, I think Sita, yeah, pretty well covered. I think the thing is, you know, Nishit, by the idea of monotheism, the idea of there's only one God. I mean, the problem we have in this world today is that which God? Because they argue a lot among themselves, right? They say, you know, we have one ultimate God. Which God? I mean, they say, no, my God is right. Your God is, you know, yours is corrupt and all that. So even they can't figure out which God, which of the one God is correct. In a better view is, why don't you just accept that people are different? They'll see that particular one God or one ultimate in their own way, because everybody's got different rich traditions, right? I mean, how can you tell a tribal we should worship a God in the urban city? They see everything differently. I think Hinduism accepts that look, there's one ultimate, and there are many, many ways to reach that ultimate. Even in the smallest things we do, you know, if I want to go to town, I can take a bus, I can take a bicycle, I can walk. If I got three options just to go to town, how can something as infinite as God only have one door? It doesn't make sense. There has to be multiple ways to, you know, to reach the to the divine. I think Sita mentioned the idea of the elephant. It's a scenario. Everybody's the supreme thing is so vast, right? So infinite. Everybody will see certain part of it. They will never see the full picture because you don't have that unless you self-realize, obviously. Just like the elephant, you know, kind of a story. So I think we have to accept that there are different ways. And something interesting as well, no matter how hard they've tried to make one universal religion, is not in the human nature. Look at Christianity or, you know, other. There's so many divisions because it's human nature. If a community becomes too big, why don't people have different views and they break away? They say, look, I don't believe in your idea of the one God. My idea was different. It's human nature because you're all different to try and see God different. Even if you impose it, it just doesn't work. So I rather we accept the Hindu idea that pluralism is the best idea to get, you know, people get along, really. Yeah.
Absolutely. that is a really good way of looking at it. So we have a saying in Hinduism is Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. It's a profound statement in Hindu philosophy. Would you be able to break it down for our younger audience and then just give us maybe a statement that encapsulates the concept of pluralism in Hinduism? Vijay bhai,
Yeah.
let's get
So, yeah, so that's a very famous verse. Ekam Sat means one truth. Bahuda Vadanti means can be expressed in many different ways. So one truth expressed in many different ways. That's a very famous, you know, verse from our Vedic scriptures. So it's, as Jaybai mentioned, it's from all the way there. It's not something we made up. At that time, the ancient seers could see that the truth is one, but can be expressed in many different ways. Don't remember one thing interesting. There is a Ekam God or Ekam Prabhu, Ekam, you know, Bhagwan. Say Ekam Sat. The Sat is the ultimate truth. It could be anything, right? It could be principle based, as Sita mentioned just recently. It could be, you know, personality based. The truth, there's one very good point we said that we're not believers, we're seekers. We try to seek the truth. So that one ultimate truth can be expressed in many different ways. That's the beauty about that verse. And that's something I think all Hindus not only apply it universally, even with their own family, even in my own family, I have 3 children. They all see the truth in different ways. So it's quite okay even in family situations. Everywhere it's okay. Yeah, Sita.
Yeah, I completely agree. You've covered it amazingly. So, I mean, the example that we've used, for example, in our primary Hinduism book about how to explain pluralism is this example of ice and water. And we put together a little story about a little boy who didn't understand the concept of, different ways of thinking about God. And his teacher said, come to my house later and I will show you, I'll explain this to you. And what he did is he got different shaped ice molds and he filled them with water and put them in the freezer. And when the little boy came, he opened up the freezer, took out the molds, which were all different shapes like stars and hearts and circles and whatever. And he asked the little boy, are these all different? Do they all look different? And the boy said, yes. But the teacher said, but are they not all made of the same thing? And the little boy said, yes. And that's exactly what we are using to understand this concept that there are lots of different ways of thinking about the same one God. We understand that it's the same spirit, but it takes on different shapes. And that helps to reconcile this idea that how can this one ultimate God have so many different forms? Because it's the same ultimate, because it is ultimate, because it is infinite, that God will in a way freeze himself or herself into the shape of your desire and come to you in that particular form. So it's the same truth as the beautiful Sanskrit verse says, but it can be seen in a variety of different ways.
Fabulous. So another common misconception is that Hinduism involves idol worship. A lot of people come across this as a misconception. Could you explain the significance of murtis in Hindu worship for our audience? Sita.
Yes. So as Vijay Bhai said so beautifully, this idea of thinking about God with form, it doesn't mean that we worship that piece of marble or that piece of rock. We are not doing that. We are simply using that shape, that image, or that statue, or whatever it is, to reach out to the infinite, because we understand the limitation of our own mindset, because it's very difficult to get our head around the concept of infinite and ultimate. So that's why we kind of create these images, beautiful images and pictures of deities and gods and goddesses to help us reach out to the infinite. Prati, as Vijay Bhai said, means going towards. So it's about going towards this idea of the infinite through a finite form. So it's not a contradiction in terms, it's just a tool that we use in order to try and make spiritual progress. And it's something that is actually done not just within Hinduism, but like we've got personalities, we've got all these gods and goddesses, but as Dad said in the video, you've got the cross in Christianity, you've got the ark in Judaism, you've got all of these symbols which we all use across world religions to help us get our minds around this very sort of difficult concept, because our minds are limited. So we need something, we need like a handle, we need a tool in order to be able to open that door and reach the infinite. So that's really what we are all trying to do. And we're not here to say that we're worshipping pieces of marbles and rock and stone and all of that. Vijay? Oh, you're on mute, Vijay.
We may have lost Vijay Bhai's mic.
Oh, no.
We'll give Vijay Bhai a minute to catch up again and maybe reconnect to the mic. Vijay Bhai, you can try whenever you're ready, just time in. So, Sita, maybe we can move to the next question as we go on. So how do we reconcile the ancient Hindu scriptures with modern ethical standards, especially when it comes to like social issues like gender equality and caste discrimination and things like that?
Yes, and actually this non-theistic approach to Hinduism can offer a lot of beautiful answers as to how we can address all of these sort of issues. Because essentially at the end of the day, all we have to really remember is that we are all different sort of drops of spirit in the same ocean. We are all one. We are all interlinked. We are all connected intrinsically at a deeper level. So this helps us to address a lot of social issues around, for example, the gay issue. It doesn't matter what gender you're born into, you are the same spirit. It doesn't matter what race you're born into, because at the end of it all, we are the same spirit at the end of the day. Whatever sort of social sort of structure you're part of, remember that ultimately we are all the same spirit. So wherever we are, whatever background is, whatever direction we're going in life, remember that we are all the spirit. And it gives this beautiful philosophy of egalitarianism, equality in the truest sense, not just on paper, just to make it be diplomatic. And it's not just a political gesture, it's a genuine gesture of spiritual unity, essentially, because we are all that same underpinning. And if we use that as the basis of all of our social encounters, it can really enrich our lives, because we are not just matter, we are not different colors of skin, we are not different gender orientations. That's not who we actually are. Who we actually are is the spirit underneath. And if we can try and remember that through all of our social interactions, then our lives will definitely be richer and for the better. Vijay, I think your mic is back.
Yeah, I've mixed back. I think I missed the question, but what I can add, just from what Sita mentioned, is that, it's very, very scary for a lot of people when you say I am divine, I am like God-like, personality, because then first of all, people lose control, because if you're following a religion where there's only one God, the clergy who say, I know what God looks like, I'm the best person to give the knowledge, it's a very powerful form of control. But the day you say that I am divine and you empower yourself personally, first of all, it can be very scary for people who want to control you, because they don't have any control over you anymore. And second, it's scary for us as well. Then we go to try and work hard on our own to find the truth. So this is the thing about, the idea of divine. But the thing is, you're at least your own master, and you have your own struggles to find that divinity.
Brilliant. So, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. This is a beautiful idea of Hindu philosophy. How can we promote this concept to counter misconceptions about, say, for example, the caste system and things like that?
So that's a very famous. Yeah,
Vijay.
That's a very famous, another famous verse, which is used everywhere. Whenever I see some videos with interfaith, they mention that, Vasudeva Kutumbakam basically means world is one large family. I mean, the truth is that even the way we say Hindu Sanatana Dharma is the same thing. Sanatana Dharma is eternal, universal, and Dharma is applicable to everybody. It doesn't say it's linked to a particular deity or particular idea of God. That's the beauty about Sanatana Dharma. It's a universal term. So it makes sense the world is one family. Because religion cannot be, if you say that, look, I know the only way of a religion, and if you don't follow my way, then it's the highway. It doesn't work like that. So when it's the world is one big family, just in one small family, you have different views, different ideas, you have discussions, you have arguments, you have agreements. Same way the whole world is kind of one family. In that sense, even the idea of divinity or idea of pursuing the divine, searching for divine, is in a way like one big family who work together, not by imposing on somebody, but by accepting that we are all different and we live in one big family, and we try and get along and make the best with our diverse views and still go for the same goal. Asita?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the whole point about spirituality and spiritual living is, trying to not limit ourselves, trying to expand ourselves. So we say, okay, it's wonderful to look after our own sort of immediate family, but we need to make the effort, if we want to be truly spiritual, to expand that circle and include the wider community, our neighborhood, and hopefully the whole entire world, and see the whole entire world as our family. And it reminds me of what we learned in, the ashram system of Hinduism, the way that we can structure our lives. And for people who choose the path of sannyas, which is the step of becoming a monk and sort of renouncing worldliness, what they say is that, we take a step back from our immediate family, because then we accept and embrace the whole world as our family, because we're seeing the broader vision, we're seeing the broader concept of spirituality by accepting the whole of humanity as our family and not just our little family. The whole of spirituality is about expanding ourselves. And the thing is, when you accept the whole of humanity as your family, you kind of get rid of this idea of attachment. You know, you're attached to certain people and you're very, very emotionally sort of bonded to a few people. Whereas if you accept the whole world as your family, in a way, no matter how many people come and go in your life, you are not yet attached in that way, but you just love the entirety of humanity. So in a way, we're able to remove that sort of pain and suffering which comes from attachment. But it's much easier said than done. But that's the idea, hopefully.
Brilliant. So, for somebody who's looking into Hinduism from, say, another one of the mainstream religions, they might perceive Hinduism as a set of rituals and superstitions. How can we change this narrative, Vijay bhai?
So I think because the thing is, Hinduism is so vast and broad in its practices, and there's also a wide variety of practices in Hinduism. Somebody from outside who is used to having been taught of only worshiping God in one way can be quite daunting for them. And that's very true, because I've seen that when people ask, oh, I wouldn't even know where to start. You have this God, that God, who do I choose? How can I choose? You know, how do I know is it right for me? So all kinds of questions do pop up. But I would suggest that, look, the thing is that whatever inner attributes or qualities you have, use from that idea and see how you can link to Hinduism. If you don't like the idea of say, a God in an image form, then go to Advaita tradition, right? If you like the idea, you don't want to follow a particular leader, then you can do yoga. So we have options for every person with everybody's different with different attributes. Hinduism has the ability and options for all these different attributes, and they can choose what is best for them. So I think if you and tell them also it's okay as well. That's the key thing. It's okay to pursue your own path. It doesn't even have to be Hinduism. You know, it can be your own different path. You can make your own path. That's fine too. That can be quite daunting for somebody who's grown up being told by a scripture, by a a religious leader that you must do it this way, or you kind of burn in hellfire, whatever. It's very hard for them. But I think if you give them strength, they work on your inherent strengths and accept. This is why I really love Vivekananda. You are your own master. If you keep that in mind and you are the supreme, the greatest book of all is yourself, not all these scriptures in the world. If you start from that point, give somebody that strength, that's, oh wow, I didn't know that. Then they'll think differently. I think the key to give them confidence that you are much more bigger than just a follower or a believer. You are somebody who's far more greater. But it's a tricky question, I agree, Nishit. By Sita.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. So, I mean, I think the wonderful thing is, as Vijay Bhai said, we've obviously, the teachings of Swami Vivekananda are so incredibly empowering because they put us in charge of our own spiritual journey, of our own spiritual progress. And we're clearly told, that we shouldn't just, blindly believe and blindly accept anything that is written in any kind of scripture. We have to think about it. It has to make logical sense for us in order for us to digest it and to accept it. We have to choose our own path, and Hinduism is very open about that there are so many different pathways. It doesn't even need to be linked to any particular religion. It could be you love music or art or poetry or science, as we've said many times before. And if that is your passion, then that is what you should follow. That's what you should do. It doesn't need to be bound down by any religion or by any rituals or rites of passage. It doesn't have to be. It can be as broad as you like, because in a way, this idea of being spiritual is becoming more and more popular because people are fed up with just a purely sort of materialistic outlook on life, because there's a real sort of emptiness to it. There's no sort of meaning and purpose. What's the point if we are all just, lumps of matter and we're just interacting with other lumps of matter? What's the point of anything then if we're just going to disintegrate into nothingness? What's the point? It feels very depressing. Whereas if we understand that we are actually spiritual beings and we are all deeply connected, and we try and find that deep connection with other individuals, it can make life incredibly meaningful and purposeful.
Fabulous. So folks, thank you so very much for joining us. If you've just recently tuned in, you are listening in to the Hindu Academy live stream. We run every Saturday, 2 o'clock. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I just want to say a huge thank you to all our regular viewers who keep tuning in every week, supporting us with their contributions, their thoughts, their comments. I'm just going to read out a few that we've had from some of our viewers. Ali says that most of the people she's known, when you mention the word God, that's when things fall apart. And she said that people find Buddhism and Taoism appealing. And naively, people seem to think that Hinduism is just for those from India, but actually it's for anybody around the world. Anybody could be a Hindu. We've got Jats for YouTube. He's saying that according to Swami Nityananda, only 30% of Indian population are practicing Hindus. The question is, what is the definition of a practicing Hindu? There isn't one like that. Trushar Patel, one of our regular viewers and supporters, he's saying that humans learn from storytelling, and our 10,000-year-old culture has survived due to colorful narratives, kathas, arts, and bhajans. And kathakars, the people who narrate these stories, they sit for hours narrating these stories, using their talent to serve and ignite faith into millions globally. So knowledge is limiting even when Vedanta means the end of knowledge. So what he's asking is, should we, as Hindu Academy, focus on the knowledge to defend Hinduism against people who don't understand it, or just let barking dogs bark, is the expression, but see the beauty in their ignorance? So, Vijay Bhai, what do you think?
So I think there's a couple of things here. We do accept, right, of course, that everybody has their own ways to pursue spirituality, and that's fine. We are not against Christianity or Islam or other religions. They can, if they follow the religion, they've grown up with that narrative, they've been growing with that faith. That's fine. I think one thing we still have sort of an obligation to show people about Hinduism, because quite often people have a view, a very kind of myopic view of Hinduism. They see something as we mentioned, bizarre, strange. So I think in a way we have to spread these ideas. But personally, if you ask me personally, I do believe that Hinduism has a lot to offer the world, especially the idea of pluralism. And why not? We should be proud of that idea of concept pluralism. We should promote it, as Jay has been saying. So ultimately, the world will benefit. So we have that obligation to promote fundamental ideas of Hinduism, which are, in a way, make a society a better society. We're not saying other religions don't have it; they do have it. But if we can help in the idea of, especially the idea of pluralism and accepting the different pathways are okay, that's a very, very big thing, because quite often wars have been fought in this world, inter-religion and intra-religion, because my way is better than your way. So if you can dispel that, even that small thing is a very big kind of plus for Hinduism. So sometimes, yes, some people just bark needlessly, just say things, they don't know what they're saying, you can ignore them. But we should actually promote our very good ideas. I mean, again, Swami Vivekananda is fantastic here. The idea of empowering oneself, the idea of, accepting all different people, all different, and have many ways to, pursue spirituality. That's something we should try and promote, which is what Jay has been doing for, his dedicated his whole life to doing that. Asita?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And sometimes in a way, it's better to sort of practice it ourselves and sort of let the light shine naturally, in a way, just be like an open flower, and then let the bees come, let them see. They'll think, wow, what is this? I'm intrigued to know more. I want to learn from you. And that's the best sort of way, rather than sort of going out openly and sort of trying to convert others, which is obviously not what Hinduism is all about at all. So we just kind of let the light shine, live it, breathe it, and hopefully it will draw in people. People will be intrigued to know more. So I think it's a wonderful, gentle way of sort of presenting the idea of spirituality, which is, so sort of integral to Hindu tradition and stuff. So try and be sort of let the light shine.
We've had a wonderful discussion. Vijay Bhai, you've been getting some compliments from our viewers on your answers, so well done on that. And I always tell our viewers that we've got the expert panel here, so I'm not wrong. So how does Hinduism encourage spiritual growth and self-realization, especially amongst the youth of today, who are striving for purpose and direction? Because we got many members in our audience, and a huge portion of them are youngsters.
Sita?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way for youngsters to sort of develop this understanding is basically trying to let them think for themselves and let them ask all the questions. But the danger comes when sometimes the parents or the adults are not aware of the answers, and then it makes Hinduism look weaker than it's supposed to be. So I think it's really important that both parents and children try and develop that secure sort of knowledge and understanding of Hinduism, so that when their children come and ask, why do we do this? Why do we, do all of these various, practices? Why is this our philosophy? Why? And if the adult is able to present a rational explanation, it makes so much more sense. And when that child grows up and interacts with other children of other traditions in school and college and university, they will feel proud. They will feel happy to talk about their religion rather than sort of shy away from it. So I think it's incredibly important that we develop that education, right from the beginning, and encourage people to ask questions. It's very different in the olden days, our grandparents' generation, they were told you must do this. And as little children, you would just do it because that's what you're told to do. But that's not going to sit well with today's youngsters. It just doesn't fit, because people are encouraged, children are encouraged to ask questions. So we need to sort of nurture that and help them develop a broader understanding. In a way, the only way that you understand is by asking questions and clearing your doubts in that way. So that's that. Vijay bhai?
I think, Nishiba, the question is a very valid question. I think, Sita, you have covered very nicely. One thing I must add is that, quite often people don't realize that Hinduism has got a vast literature, even for young children. I would encourage children, parents to give children stories of, we have Panchtantra, we have Jatak tales, Panchratna, we have tales of Ramakrishna Paramahans. From a very young age, we can get them exposed to the ideas, because quite a few of these stories have some subtle Hindu ideas of respect, of rationality, of thinking. And then, of course, as Sita mentioned, that as they grow older, if the parents are not prepared, then they will struggle. So education is also a very important part of kids growing up.
Brilliant. So last couple of questions, then we can move on to general Q&A. We barely have a few minutes for it. But in fact, let me just close the topic here. Just summarize what we've discussed. I mean, this is such a vast topic. We could still go on. There's so many things we haven't yet covered, like the Puranas and all these other misconceptions that we've got. But I hope the viewers that you've enjoyed this discussion so far. We've had an interesting journey dissecting and challenging the misconceptions often associated with Hinduism. So we've navigated through the misunderstood principle of polytheism and pluralism. We've looked at the true essence of Murti reverence, and we've looked at the misinterpretation of the caste system as it exists in modern society versus the principle of the Varna system, or what was originally meant as stratification of the society. So the conversation opened up fresh perspective, and hopefully it's brought a deeper understanding of the richness, depth, and diversity of Hindu thought and practice. So I'd like to thank Sita Ben and Vijay Bhai for your very good, insightful comments and contributions, which the viewers have really enjoyed. So now we're, excited to hear from the global community that we've got. I'm going to share some questions from general Q&A. And whether you're joining us from UK, India, or anywhere around the world, your views, questions, and thoughts are important to us. So let's move forward with the essence of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family, and let's get into the general Q&A. So we got a question straight away from Tushar Patel, and Tushar Patel's got two questions. He's asking, what is Seva in Hinduism, and why do the Dharma Sampradayas place so much emphasis on it? So what is Seva in Hinduism, and why do other groups emphasize it so much? Sita Ben.
Yes, so Seva means selfless service, and I think it really ties in so beautifully with this idea that we are all essentially the same divinity underneath everything else. So the way that we can sort of practice spirituality is by sort of rubbing away at our own sense of ego. And the way that we can do that in a very practical way is by serving others, doing whatever we can, whatever time, whatever resources we have, trying to dedicate that to the service of others. And actually what you find is that it's a very uplifting thing to do. You know, at the end of the day, you've done your selfless service, you feel wonderful, you feel recharged and uplifted, because in that moment where you are supporting somebody else, you forget your own sense of, oh, this is me and I'm doing this. You're thinking purely about the other person, and it's a very uplifting and energizing thing to do. Vijay Bhai?
Just one more thing to add on that. I think that's again, Sita, I think got it before, is that seva can be seen in two different ways. If you are from other tradition, you serve others because it's the same essential divine in us, it is in them as well. Vijay. So in a way, you're not actually serving them. You're actually serving yourself, because in a way you're uplifting, by uplifting others, you're uplifting yourself, the one and the same. And if you come from the tradition, then of course you're serving, helping somebody be the children of God. So in both senses, seva is very essential. And all sampradayas, in the sampradayas that I know of, put a lot of emphasis on seva.
Fabulous. So we have one more question, which is from Andre Ruff. It's I would say, a guarded question, which is, what do we do with religions that believe they must convert all others at all costs, including persecution and violence? Those who do not want to engage in reasonable discourse. Vijay Bhai, what's
it's very tough, because some people are so set in their ways. It's difficult to try and have a discourse with them. I give you my example. Once I met a Baptist, and he was convinced that I would go in hell and whatever. So I challenged him with some question. I said, "Look, do you believe in evolution?" He goes, "No, that's a lot of nonsense." And I said, "Look," and he goes, "that actually the devil is trying to deceive you." And I said, "Well, they found bones, which are like dating millions of years old." And he goes, "No, the earth is only like 4004 BC." I said, "But there's evidence and there's carbon dating." And he goes, "There you go. You just proved my point. As I was saying, the devil is deceived and you're one of them. So all this carbon, everything is actually, in a way, devil deceiving me." So he goes, "You have been caught in the trap. So how do you argue with such people?" You can't argue with them. But the point is this: look, you still have to make an effort and show them, look, challenge them, why is your way exclusive the only way? On what basis? If it goes a scripture, or if it goes somebody says so, prophet, aren't you bigger than the prophet? Why should you be bound by somebody else's word? Find for yourself. But it's it's not that easy. For some people are so set, so brainwashed, difficult. But nevertheless, one should try, I think. Sita?
Yeah, I think what we have to do is just sort of be optimistic that, sometimes people take a bit of a detour, they take a bit of a wrong turning on their spiritual journey. And hopefully, at some point they might realize that actually this isn't the right way, and they might try and be more sort of open. So we just have to be optimistic and hopeful that we are all going in the same direction, but sometimes we get a bit lost and we go on detours, but hopefully we'll come back on track again at some point.
I have a different approach. I have a more pragmatic thought on this. I have a feeling that it's all about control at the end of the day. So if you can empower the people, usually the people who are being converted are those who are maybe at the lower end of society, who are deprived of certain things. So by luring them with the thought of getting a better way of life or a better outcome in their life, that could be one of the approaches they have. Money, education, medicines, various different things, right? So if you can empower the society around you, to have the knowledge of their own religion first, and then everybody to get things like upliftment, women, equality rights, education for people, various different things, that alone will help them stand on their own 2 feet, and then they won't be distracted by people coming in with these kind of tactics to convert them. Vijay Bhai, what are your thoughts on that?
No, it's very true. I'll say something. I'm not sure I said it, but I'll just say it anyway. I was in my village about many years ago, and actually there's a Krishna school nearby, and I met one of the padris who'd come to visit, and he told me very bluntly, you'd be surprised, just what he said, Nishit Bhai. He goes, the biggest worry that I have, he was saying this to me, is India will become rich before it becomes Christian. So that answers your question. Because he knows people who are rich and wealthy and self-centered, self-aware, they will never convert. And he goes, we'll be successful in Africa, in the Philippines, and our biggest worry is India will That's why I think sometimes people get worried with all the taking place. Their goals are getting harder and harder because people get educated, So in a way, you're very initiated by the way to once someone is empowered, then they say, look, I want to find my own path. I want to find my own way. You go all this is what Hinduism is all about. So in a way, we win. So in a way, you're right. That is very important as well. I think Vivekananda has mentioned this time and time again. His whole life, when several lectures is given, they're so kind of emotional. He wants to uplift the people in India so they become their own masters. And what you said by really clicks what Vivekananda said about 150 years ago. Sita?
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Nishit. You make a very good point, because a lot of these things, a lot of conversions happen because of fear, because of fraud, because of financial sort of, coercion. And, they're in a way sort of nothing to do with spirituality, but it's a shame that spirituality is used as a way to blackmail and convert people and get numbers. But it's more about quality rather than quantity.
Brilliant. So, folks, once again, we are at the end of today's session. Another fantastic session, expressing my gratitude to Vijaybai and Sitabin, and also to all the viewers. Each one of you have contributed in a very meaningful way, sharing your understanding and appreciation of Hinduism, its philosophy, and its nuances. So if you found today's session to be valuable and wish to continue being part of this growing community, I would then encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to hit the bell notification. We still do upload regular new videos, content that has not been put up on YouTube before. And so over the course of the week, you'll be notified when we do these uploads. And I hope to see you next Saturday as well. Lovely to see people all the way from the US and India and many other parts of the world, South Africa, and so on. So remember to mark your calendars for 2 o'clock every Saturday. Next week, we'll be here with another compelling aspect of Hindu thought. And another final thing is we are delighted to announce that we are working on a new platform for our very highly popular Hinduism course. And we will be providing you an even more engaging and immersive learning experience. So keep an eye out for updates on this. We can't wait to share it with you. Once again, thank you very much for your time today. It's a lovely, gorgeous summer day here in London. You made the time out of your day to be with us, and we appreciate that. In the spirit of Hinduism, let's remember that we are all part of one single global family. And I would like to end with a quote from Swami Vivekananda. And the quote is, "In a day when you do not come across any problems, you can be sure that you are traveling in the wrong path." And this quote speaks volumes about today's session, challenging the misconceptions in Hinduism, underlining that the path to understanding is often paved with questions and doubts. And it is only through addressing these issues that we can gain a deeper, more nuanced understanding of our belief system. So that's it. I hope you all have a wonderful week ahead, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye for now.